We do it every Monday here on Wake Up Barstool. It is once again time for the Football G-Spot.
Got me feeling icy.
I love football. Knock on wood if you're with me, everybody.
Can I finish my point?
Welcome, guys. I'm feeling good. It's another victory Monday for me. Michigan win. Patriots win. It's feeling like old times. I wake up Monday with a smile on my face. Now, 3 franchises who I feel like, and you guys can throw in someone else if you think, but we're getting to that part of the season, pretender, contender, and you start playing games where you show yourself. It's like, okay, this team's going to hang around and be there. 3 teams that I feel like flunked this test. I'm curious your take. The worst, the Bears. The Bears go into Baltimore. Baltimore is desperate for a win, but they have no Lamar Jackson. He's out. Bears are playing good football. They're starting to look like maybe Caleb Williams coming around, and they look awful. Pittsburgh lead at halftime, end up getting trounced by the Packers. Everyone's wondering, are they a real team? They end up giving up 21 in the fourth quarter. They look like they're positioned now for draft picks. In the Cowboys, who have gone back and forth, decimated by injuries, but then they beat Washington by 20 last week. You're like, is this team okay? They go into Denver and they get annihilated. We'll start with you, Greg. If you have anybody else, who had the worst loss this weekend?
I think of the teams that are in contention, teams that have been kind of been on the rise the last couple of weeks. I think it's Chicago. I think Baltimore's reeling. I think all the controversy of thinking they were getting Lamar potentially back, and then obviously everything that went down on Friday, it turned out he was not as close to being back, and it was all the speculation about the injury report and everything. And then Tyler Huntley plays well, and that's probably the worst the Bears have looked probably in the last 4 or 5 weeks. So I think the Steelers lost. Listen, last night, that game, a lot going on there with Rodgers back playing against the Packers. I think the Packers are for real. I think Jordan Love is for real. So I think that loss, I think a lot of teams are going to lose to Green Bay. You mentioned Dallas. Their offense, I still think, is good. I know they weren't as good yesterday. Dak had some struggles, throwing a couple picks. But, I think Chicago's loss, that's one you got to have. The Ravens couldn't buy a win the first part of the season now. And that's one they're going to look back on as that NFC North kind of comes into picture at the end of the year. That's one you look back and you're like, you got to beat a team without their starting quarterback that's only won a game up to that point, especially if you think that you're in contention to make a playoff run.
Coach?
Yeah, I like the 3 teams you picked, Dave. Those were bad losses. I throw the Minnesota Vikings in there too. Here's a team that they looked terrible the other night against the Chargers. They got destroyed on both sides of the ball. They have issues now, what they're doing with the quarterback position moving forward. I throw the 49ers in there too. I know Mac Jones has been playing for a while, but the Houston Texans have been invisible on offense. They put 475 yards on this 49er defense. It was a tough day at the office watching a lot of these games yesterday, I'll say.
That's a different question. I didn't have it on the list. I feel like, and people have said it all the time, but if you're just sitting down, watching college football on a Saturday, these games, 90% of them are more exciting than these NFL games. These NFL games, few and far between. I don't know if they can serve the play calling, but for me, give me the college football Saturday. Speaking of, Lane Kiffin gets in a little do-to-do with an Oklahoma player after the game. Let's show the clip here. He's talking trash at the end of the game. Coach, how much does that go on with when you were coaching, where you're talking trash with the players on the field?
Goes on quite a bit. I talked trash when I was doing Monday Night Football. I think
what does that mean?
I think it's just part of competing. These players, these guys get up for a game. They got to try to get themselves up for games. They got to get their teammates up for games. Emotions take over sometimes, but I never had a shouting match with a player after a game like that. But I thought Lane Kiffin handled that pretty good. The kid was obviously jawing him during the game, and they hooked up after the game. And I thought Lane, all he had to do was point at the scoreboard. That was a pretty convincing win for the Rebels.
Greg, you ever go at it with a coach?
Not after a game. I've had a couple back and forths, and again, nothing overly dramatic or personal, but Sean Payton was one that used to, he was not afraid to get into it. You ended up on their sideline, a controversial play, a catch. He was not afraid to kind of go back and forth with players. But again, all in good competitive spirit, all in good nature. It is an intense game. These guys are fired up. I actually thought Lane, I agree with Coach, I actually thought Lane handled it really well. He's doing his post-game press conference. It looked, again, that short little clip, it looked like the Oklahoma kid came to him, and then Lane was just kind of paying off what was a day of back and forth and was calm and collected and didn't personally insult the kid or anything. So I actually thought it was good entertainment. I thought it was good spirit. I think people would be shocked the amount of back and forth, the amount of intensity between players, between coaches, players and coaches. Like an NFL sideline, a college football sideline is not for the faint of heart. If you're going to have your feelings hurt, if you're going to be, if you're going to be insulted, it's not the place for you. And I think when the dust settles, everyone goes back to their locker room and you move on pretty fast. But I have no issue with it. I like that Lane is fiery. I like that Lane is competitive. I like that he says what's on his heart and he says what's on his mind and he doesn't give all the PC answers. I would love to play for him. I love everything about him.
They're talking him we had earlier. So Brian Kelly gone at LSU. Lane is the name that's the top of T-Bob, who is a LSU graduate. LSU. Now I'm sitting T-Bob. I don't know if you can hear me right now.
Yeah, I got
there's
you.
a guy on this panel, as I'm looking around, who sometimes gets named in these coach circles. Coach Gruden would absolutely
I thought you were talking about me.
I did too.
No, Coach Gruden would absolutely light Louisiana on fire. Imagine this guy down on the bayou.
The funny thing is, and I guess now I have the opportunity to just ask Coach himself, but like when I was in college, there were always rumors about Miles getting fired, Miles going to Michigan, and the first name that we would always hear was Jon Gruden. Coach, were you ever in discussion with LSU in the past to come be the head coach, your agent or anything?
Not that I recall. I don't like what I'm seeing, to be honest with you guys, with all these coaches being fired. It's not even November yet. I know there's a lot of expectations on these guys, but college football is very difficult right now with the transfer portal and the NIL and navigating all this stuff and trying to establish a culture and, getting your coaching staff to stay online with you. It's a crazy world of college football right now, but I hope they find some good replacements out there because some of these teams might be sorry they did what they did.
Coach, I got a question for you. Would you rather be an NFL coordinator or a college head coach right now?
Oh, great question.
I'd probably rather be one of those, I don't know. I'd like to be a head coach. I'd like to give it a shot again. I mean, I sit in a dark room and study tapes most of the days, and I'm not going to try to fuel any rumors or anything like that, but I'll be ready to go if I get another shot. I'm just trying to keep my job I have, T.
Coach, I love you.
On to this
Listen,
job.
Coach, there's no bigger fan of yours than mine. I love you. If you lose to Vanderbilt as the LSU coach and lose at home by 25 to A&M, I would be calling for your head. And that's as somebody who likes you. So Brian Kelly, it was time for him to go. That program had run its course. This isn't year one of the Brian Kelly regime. How many years was this guy
is
there?
year
He's running
4.
the program into the ground.
They say this, though, Dave. Yes.
He's making crazy videos. Malasek wouldn't let you get out there and make those videos. He'd say, Coach, we're not doing these fake accent things. So I get some coaches short leash. Brian Kelly, time to go. I mean, you wanted him to have more time?
All I'm saying is the SEC is a lot different now than it was 5 years ago. I mean, I look around, I see Texas, I see Oklahoma. The whole landscape of the league is different. And putting together these teams is a hell of a lot different than it is 7 or 8 years ago as well. Brian Kelly's a good coach. I'm sure he'll land on his feet. And I just hate seeing a lot of coaches getting fired before November, but that's just me.
Yeah, that's coach speak. I mean, Greg, what do you think? I don't know how closely you're following that. What do you fired this guy, Brian Kelly?
I have a general rule about firing, and obviously I follow NFL more than I do. I follow college football more and just a fan on Saturdays and whatnot. I don't study the landscape, the carousels, who are the next coaches. My general rule is, though, I think teams are so quick to fire, and then the question becomes, okay, fine, fire the guy that you don't want anymore, but are you confident that you can guarantee you're going to find someone better? And I think that's always the question you have to ask, and especially at the NFL position where you see all these guys, you get a quick hook, and then the guy they replace him with sometimes often is worse. So I think that's a huge part that people have to take a step back. Fan bases, ownership in the NFL, or obviously ADs in the college game. So I do think the challenge going on right now is because there are so many top jobs available. There, Florida, Arkansas, Penn State. I mean, we got major college football programs that need to find this. And are you telling me there's 5 really better coaches than Brian Kelly and James Franklin and some of these guys that have been doing this for a long time? Or maybe you can find 1, or you can find 5. You can be able to replace all of these programs at once. Arkansas, another SEC school that has big aspirations. So I think a big challenge is going to be the top coach, whoever that is deemed as the number 1 target. He's going to be the number 1 target for a handful of teams, and only one of you are going to get him. So now the question is, what do you do if you don't get the star of this, recruiting class, so to speak? And is, when the dust settles, are you better off than you were 3 months earlier? I don't know that every team can make that guarantee. Firing always seems like the answer in the moment. I think you have to see over the next 6 to 12 months whether or not that firing actually led to you getting better, or did you just stroke a big check and start all over again?
Yeah, no, I don't want to rehash it, but the another question which we discussed in the first segment, in LSU's case, the guy who hired Jimbo Fisher at A&M, total disaster, and hired Brian Kelly, he's still there. So he's still the one making the decision. I think he should be fired too. You mentioned the ownership. Well, you laugh because it's like, I mean, what's going to change? This guy doesn't know how to hire a head coach. Ownership. You mentioned ownership. You got the Jets owner, Woody. What's his name? Woody
Johnson.
Woody Johnson, ambassador to Europe, I think, at one point, or London, or something like that. Now he comes out. The Jets, one of the worst franchises in the history of football. Just they're one of the worst franchises. They hadn't won a game. He comes out, kills the coach. They turn around, get a win. What are you guys thinking? I know Coach Gruden, you've played for some of the craziest owner, maybe Al Davis, the Davises that's ever lived. So what do you do when the owner gets involved like that? Does that hurt the locker room, help the locker room? You say, just keep that out. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's tough. I mean, obviously, you got to have a thick skin, but, when your owner talks to the media, like the owner of the Jets did, that can be really painful, and it can be humiliating, and it can really be toxic. I give the Jets credit, man. I mean, they went on the road to Cincinnati and beat the Bengals, coming off a huge win against the Steelers. They had every reason to pack it in and quit. They were behind a couple scores, and they found a way to get it done. I give Aaron Glenn, I give the Jet players a lot of credit, but Woody Johnson, I think he's the guy that had that long necklace on last year during one of the games. Some owners, they got a lot more firepower, I guess, with the media than others. Jerry Jones is pretty outspoken. Lets you know, I think he got after the Cowboys a little bit yesterday too, Dave. But Al Davis, he wouldn't necessarily go to the media. He would be knocking on my door and calling me at midnight if he had a problem.
Well, did you respect that more?
I do. I like when you handle it behind closed doors. I think we talked about Tua a couple weeks ago, saying some things in the media that you probably regret saying the next day. I'm sure Woody Johnson, to a degree, doesn't probably understand how the media can take it and run with it. But I do think he probably regrets some of those statements. But I like it handled a lot better behind closed doors. I think that's the best way in the long run.
Greg?
Yeah, I think the NFL is built on speaking the truth, right? You have to be honest with your players. You have to be honest with your coaches in all different aspects of the relationships across the board. You have to be able to be honest. And if guys are going to be sensitive and personal, again, like I said earlier, kind of joking about Lane Kiffin, like it's just not the sport for you. But having said all of that, you are going to have to put out so many fires as a player, as a coach, especially a team that hadn't yet won a game. You got a relatively young quarterback in Justin Fields who is up and down. Is he the starter? Is he going to be replaced? And then for ownership to go out and just make the biggest fire of it all, which is to criticize, coach, quarterback. You can be honest. You can be a leader that's going to go directly, to Coach's point, like call Aaron Glenn directly. You want to sit down with Justin Fields and tell him exactly what the expectations are. You should, as the owner, as the coach, as any position of power, the format and the messaging is just so critical in the NFL because you are going to have noise, and especially in New York. To add gas to the fire that you're creating and just make it worse is really not in anybody's best interest. That locker room already has enough challenges. That head coach already has enough headaches. Justin Fields was very honest, and I give him a lot of credit, not only to win that game, the team to rally to score 39 points when I don't think they scored 39 points in the last 3 games. He was very honest in his post-game presser. I'm not sure if you guys saw it, but he's like, I had a dark week. I spent time, by myself in my closet. I was praying. He was emotional about it after the game. People don't realize just how these guys are affected by what's said.
He said he was in his closet?
Yeah, he said he had a dark moment. It was a very personal press conference. Did you guys see it?
Crying. Yeah. He said he went into it. Yeah. I actually saw the headline. And I thought he was being facetious, dead serious. I thought he was doing it the other way, I don't care what the owner says, but he was being serious.
I thought he was being serious.
I
thought he was being serious. So all that to say, I give the Jets a lot of credit. I do think in frustrating times, we've all said things in post-game open locker room, post-game press conferences that the next day you're like, was it the truth? Yes. Did it have to be said in that format? Probably not. And now,
and also, Woody doesn't exactly he has a franchise of ineptitude. So, I mean, there's some owners maybe where you put a little respect on their name. It's well, this guy's running a pretty good franchise, doesn't speak that much. When you're the New York Jets, I don't know that you care. That's why I thought he was facetious. What do I care what this guy says? This guy has run this franchise into the ground. So, it was a good win. And it brings up, we haven't talked the other side of that win. The Cincinnati Bengals, they bring in Flacco, and that's a franchise. I don't even know what to put the Bengals into. There's another horrific franchise, but finally it looks like they got the guy in Burrow, right? They make a Super Bowl. They look like they're knocking on the door. Now, he continually is getting hurt, and whether his career will be one that he couldn't stay on the field, time will tell. But that is a franchise, and speaking as a fan, they were getting cocky. They were getting obnoxious. It's these Bengal fans, they're talking a lot of trash. They're doing the who day all over. To lose that game, their season's over again. I don't know what to think about these Bengals because it's one thing to have no hope, but to have hope and then have it crushed, I guess as long as they have Burrow, they'll be next year. But that is a franchise, man, that looks like they're going back down to the depths of the ocean.
How smart does Mike?
Bengals,
go ahead, Coach.
Greg. I say the Cincinnati Bengals, defensively have drafted a lot of players over the last several years. Their philosophy, obviously, is draft and develop, kind of like Green Bay. This defense has not developed. I mean, they got a lot of high picks on every level of that defense. They just fired Lou Anarumo, the defensive coordinator. Guess where he is right now, calling him up? He's with the 7-1 Colts. So you bring Al Golden. Al Golden's a good coach. But if you don't have players, I don't care what kind of coach you are. And I go back to some of these college coaches. These players are getting paid a lot of money. Some of these players got to play a lot better. And some of these players got to quit getting hurt. Hell, there's about 10 guys on every team that don't even play. And we sit here and bitch about the coach. Let's fire him every day. I say we get some of these trainers run out of the league and get some of these players to give back their money because they got to play better. But the Bengals defense, that was disgusting. That was a terrible effort yesterday. 500 yards versus the Jets. And the Jets don't have a receiver that I can name. I can't name their wide receivers. And they got gashed, and they weren't ready to play. And offensively, their offensive line, they haven't given an offensive lineman a second contract since Clint Bowling. I mean, this is a bunch of rental properties on the offensive line, and Burrow's hurt every year, it seems. So, we're rambling. But I'm from Ohio, and these Bengals ticked me off yesterday.
All right, Greg.
Yes, defensively is clearly their issue. Every time I see the Bengals, though, all I think about is how right Mike Tomlin was, though. And I know they didn't win this game, but Tomlin, before they beat Pittsburgh last week, he's like, I don't know, maybe the Browns are smarter. You know, they shipped out a guy that was good enough to be their week 1 starter, and they send Flacco, and they end up beating Pittsburgh. They come to life on offense. Jamar Chase catches 500 passes. And listen, I know they lost. They scored 38 points. So, that when I think of the Bengals, whether their season is done or not, all I think about is Mike Tomlin was dead right. Why would you trade a quarterback like Flacco, give life to a team that was utterly used? They were horrible on offense and defense, gave them life at quarterback following Burrow getting hurt, and they end up beating Pittsburgh. And then, of course, they lose a shootout here to a Jets team that hadn't scored 39 in a long time. So, yeah, the future there is going to be all dependent upon can they just get status quo and average at defense. Because offensively, they're going to score points. They got two of the best receivers in the league. When Burrow does come back, or Flacco, whoever's at quarterback, score a lot of points. You're not going to give up 30 plus a game and think you're going to make much of a run in the NFL. That's just not going to happen. But I just find it funny that Tomlin called.
Yeah, not just 30.
39.
You got to put an asterisk 30 to the New York Jets. You got a guy who I know are being delicate about it, but to a quarterback who you guys just said was sitting in a dark closet crying because the owner, I don't want my quarterback to. Drake May is not sitting in a dark closet crying to himself. Drake May's out there throwing touchdowns. So I know we want to be delicate about it. I don't like hearing my quarterback has locked. You know what? I lost the 4th of July races in my town. You have 4th of July races as little kids. You're like 7, 8 years old. It's like a 40-yard dash. I came in second one year. I slipped. I locked myself in a closet and cried. I was 6 years old. Thank you guys for coming on the show. We'll get you next week. I don't want my quarterback crying in dark closets. Get mad. Don't cry in dark closets.